Hi, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and welcome to my Kimberbell chaos. Oh my gosh, I made such a mess this month, but it was so much fun. So let me explain. This month, we're actually going to be doing stitch and flip piecing in the block. And it's like a tulip block that is then fashioned into something that makes pinwheel. And it's super cute and it's fairly easy. So I'm going to take you through the steps to do that. But I'm also going to take you through the steps to quilt it because this month is special. Normally we do our quilting ahead of time with our project batting, and then we do the applique or whatever is needed. But this month, we're going to do it at the end. And it requires us getting that little pieced pinwheel just in the right spot to do our quilting. And as usual, I've created a unique quilting design, but feel free, please, to use the Kimberbell design as well. So here's the deal. I'm going to be working from the presentation deck that I emailed you, and you're going to be able to get other links and so forth from that. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, this is the Kimberbell Mystery Quilt Digital Dealer Exclusives for May 2025, and it's a mystery to us what this thing looks like. All right, enough talking. Let's go look at the presentation deck.
If you have signed up for our version of the Kimberbell Mystery Quilt, which is their 2025 digital dealer exclusive, then you're all too familiar with our interactive handout. So this is a presentation deck that you get each month before the premiere of the video. This has hyperlinks and things to the video that you're watching now, just in case you need to go back later and watch it. And it also has the schedule and previous lesson links for the presentation deck and the videos. Each time I also have the kit contents, and I have expanded a little bit this month because I've added some extra links in there for you. Some of you have been wondering where's the resource guide. It's kind of buried in the packages that you get from Kimberbell, and the same with some other stuff. So I've added some extra links this month. For stabilizer, we're using fusible backing, light mesh cutaway, project batting, paper tape. Not a whole lot has changed there. But there are a couple of other supplies. Now, this month you're off easy. We're only using cream thread, and that's in the top and bottom, and we're going to do it for our piecing, and we're going to use it for our quilting. I have added the 505 glue stick, but you can use any other fabric glue or even an Elmer's glue stick, but you want the kind that is water soluble. And then you can see you'll see me use these scissors a lot. I love these Karen K. Buckley little scissors. They're really wonderful for doing all the trimming that we're going to need to be doing this month. Fabric is here and it's spelled out here. We only have to add a little bit of the fusible backing to the white and yellow pieces. And before we get started and go over to the cutting table, I want to just make sure that you understand that in your presentation deck, if you click here, it is a detailed explanation by me taking you through how you get your Kimberbell designs, because although you are buying the designs and you bought the designs in the kit from BERNINA of Naperville, the digital embroidery files come directly from Kimberbell and are emailed to you by Kimberbell Direct. So the designs this month uses one embroidery design in two segments. There's an A segment and a B segment. And we'll be making 2 blocks in one hoop. 2 blocks fit very easily in the maxi hoop, like you'll see me do in the video. But I have created a file for you to make things a little bit easier if you're using the mega hoop on your Bernina 5 series, 7 series, 8 series, or obviously the mega hoop even fits the 9 series. And so I have a download that you can click that will take you right to that file. And it'll be zipped with a bunch of the other files that we're using this month. So a special note is that this block that we're making is going to be quilted after the units are completely removed from the hoop and stitched together. So normally this, for the series, we've been quilting first and then appliquing next. But for this time, we are actually going to follow all the block construction. So that's the stitch and flip piecing in the hoop, then those things come out of the hoop, they get trimmed down, they get stitched together on a regular sewing machine, and then we're going to hoop some more stuff up and quilt them. And some of the examples I'm showing you are using just a generic quilting file here, but this is what the quilting design file looks like this month from Kimberbell if you want to go that route. Now, of course, Bernina of Naperville is creating, while you watch this video, an original file that you can see here that was created on our 990. And so if you would like to use those, you can download it right here. And once again, this is the same zip file that you're going to download here with that corrected file that's going to fit in your mega hoop. But I just put all of the designs together so it's neat and tidy. Okay, so let's get over to the drawing board. So here's the fabric that we're working on. Now, you saw us use this in February. This is our melon color fat quarter, and we're going to need to cut 8 pieces of this, and these 8 pieces, should measure 4 inches by 3 inches. Then we have some 2.5 3-inch pieces, 8 from this one, 8 from this one, along with 2.5 by 3-inch pieces of the fusible backing so that we can adhere it onto the back of just the light color piece only. And so there's 8 pieces to go with this one. We have all of our pieces trimmed, and don't forget you have to, on the lighter piece here, you're going to put the fusible woven on this one. And now let's gather these up and look at our first hooping. Now, because I like to take advantage of our larger hoops, if you have the mega hoop, the maxi hoop, the jumbo hoop, or the giant hoop, we can make both of our blocks in one hooping. It saves on stabilizer, and there's a little bit about it that saves on time. So I'm going to go ahead and hoop this poly mesh stabilizer or the medium cutaway stabilizer up in the hoop like so. And then this is going to go on our machine, and I'm going to send my designs over to my Bernina 990, which is the machine that I'm working from this month.
So I'm going to pull up the designs that I sent here to my personal folder, and we should be able to recognize them. There they are, 5x7 May. That's exactly what Kimberbell created for you. And then because I'm using my maxi hoop, I'm going to go ahead and just select the maxi hoop on here. And then I'm going to close out, and I'm going to move this set up here to the top of the hoop. And then I'm going to do my edit screen, and I want to make a duplicate where I move this set right below. Now I want to get these kind of as far apart here as possible just because I want a little gap, but that looks fine. Now I did create other files for you if you have the mega hoop, because if we choose the mega hoop here, you're going to see that these don't quite fit in the hoop. And what I did in that case is I used the software to kind of move these guys up. We can ungroup it and do it in the 990 as well. It's just a little bit easier in the software. But if you wanted to try, we just need to move these close enough so there's not a red line. If I select all, if I center, yeah, it's just a little too precarious to try to do this in the hoop like this. So use our file. I arranged it already for you, so it should be easy for you. So there we go in our maxi hoop. So now I'm going to send this to the embroidery, and we want to make sure first and foremost that we have our quilt settings off and that we want thread away off, and it's okay to cut our threads on the jump stitch. And then I'm going to be using my number 26 presser foot, so we're all good to go. So let's go ahead and hit the check mark. And now it wants me to put the hoop on. And then after I put the hoop on, it wants me to wiggle it around again. And now we're ready to stitch our first placement line. So I have this threaded with my white isocord thread, and I'm just going to simply stitch for placement of the piece.
So I want to just kind of point out to you that it's this space where we want to put our first piece of fabric. And this is calling for the darker salmon color with the floral design on it. So we're going to place this into position however you would like, however you think it best goes there, right? And I use a glue stick. You can use these 505 glue sticks or even the Elmer's glue sticks are fine. But we're going to stitch this down. And you can, maybe in this case, it might be a little bit easier for me to just put the glue right on the fabric like this, just to hold it into place. And I'm covering the entire triangle that was created from that stitching that we just did. That's just a template for where we're going to place everything. And now stitch number 2 is actually a trim stitch. So now we're going to trim really close to the edge. I'm using my Karen K Buckley scissors for this. Oops, there we go. And now we're on to our next step. And after we trim, we're going to take one of our interfaced pieces, like this one here. You see, I didn't get my fusible backing exactly perfect there, but that's okay. And now we're going to line this up with the cut edge like so. And then we're going to stitch. And then I like to take a dollop of my glue and put over the spot that we're covering right there. And now we're going to fold this over and cover that entire piece. And just finger press is okay. If you want a little bit more stability, we can use our expert tape just to keep that held down into position. Or I guess this is called stabilizer tape. I can just tape that down there. Okay, now we have another trim line, which is what color number 4 is. I can go ahead and peel that tape off now. And I'm going to trim this. So now for our next piece, we're going to line it up right with that raw edge, just like that. And we're going to carefully stitch. And now for this piece, we're going to pull that one over to cover this area right here. Finger pressing. Use some glue stick if you need to there. And now color number 6, we'll stitch. And color number 6 is a trim line. And then we have another piece of the salmon with the little design on it that we're going to put right side down. And now we're making sure that when we fold this over, that's going to cover that whole triangle piece that's right here. So now we're just going to stitch this. We're going to get our glue stick at the ready. And we're going to just do a little dollop of glue like that. Fold this over. And now we'll have another stitch. And now this too is going to be a trim line. And then we have another piece of our interfaced lighter fabric that we're going to line up right there at that cutting line. And now we're going to stitch this one down. And this is stitch 9. And then we're going to put another dollop of glue right there. And we're going to fold this guy over and kind of hold it into place nicely while we get another trim stitch going. We've got our scissors at the ready. And now we're going to trim this. And I'm going to have to remove this just gently. I'm not removing the work out of the hoop, just removing the hoop off of the machine so that I can get a nice close trim because this is kind of an awkward angle. And I'm going to get that one up there too, just for fun. Okay, and now let's lay down our melon color just there. And we're going to cover that and we're going to stitch. And now we're going to flip this guy over once again with a little bit of glue right here. And this final stitch is going to kind of hold everything down into place. And what we've stitched here is the bottom of the pinwheel block. And also what we just stitched there is the cutting line when we trim. And because I've got like a bunch of blocks that we're doing in here, I want to make sure that I cut at least this piece down here so it's not in our way. There we go. And it's okay to cut close to the line like that. And don't be alarmed, but I'm going to go ahead and cut up here as well. And I'm not going to cut perfect because we'll go back to the cutting board, and make those final perfect cuts. So it looks crappy right now, but it won't later, I promise. And so now we have the top part of our block to stitch. So color number 13 is actually our little placement diagram for the top part of the pinwheel. Okay, so now that we have that into position, we have another thing that we need to place. And now we're at color number 14. And this time it's this section right here where we want to put our fabric to cover. Okay, so that means that we're going to place our salmon print right side up, covering that triangle. And remember, this is a trim line, so we're going to get our scissors at the ready and we're going to trim this angle just here, really close to that line without cutting the line. Okay. Now, once we have that trimmed, we have another one of our light pieces that have been interfaced that we're going to put right side down this time. And we're going to line it up right there. And now when this folds over, it needs to cover this entire triangle right there. Let me just move that for you there. Cover that with some glue. And remember, this glue dries clear. So, you're not going to see blue on this. No worries. And now let's stitch this down. Some people might say blue. It's really a purpley blue, a purple, you might say. So now let's trim this guy. And this is one of those situations where I'm going to kind of move it off the hoop a little bit. So I'll bring you with me over there so that you can have a see at it. And now we're going to trim. Okay. And now we're going to be placing a melon piece just here, like that. And now it's going to stitch another trim line going down this direction. And now, once again, I have to pop this off just a little bit to get close enough to trim this. And now let's sew on our final piece here. Now, this is the final piece for block 1. We have another block 2 that's stitching down here in this area. So we're going to fold that over just like we did the other piece. This is going to do that little stitch that shows us our cutting line. So we're going to line that up there. Now here we go to the bottom of the hoop, and we're just going to follow all the steps we did for our other pieces, the other units rather. And so this is going to stitch down a little outline of where our pinwheel base is going to go. And just like before, we're going to be covering that little area first there. So that means we need a salmon print fabric covering that area. And we're going to stitch a tack down or a cutting line. And this is all very repetitive because we're making two. I always do better on the second one. I don't know about you. When we're making these blocks, I don't need as much hand holding, I think. Don't forget adding a little bit of glue to the back there. Lining this up and making sure that everything's tacked down to do this. It's a cutting line, but it's also a placement line, you know? Okay, that's been trimmed. It's melon time. Instead of Miller time here, it's melon time. No, I'll try to do anything at all costs to prevent taking the hoop off the machine. Okay, now we put this dude down and we're going to stitch another placement slash cutting line. And we're doing our salmon. You might want to keep your instructions handy doing this. You know, I find I'm like, oh gosh, which one goes next? You know, it's hard to keep track of it. But I'm sure after we make like 100 quilts worth of these, we'll have it all memorized, right? Now, once again, be careful not to cut that thread. I keep doing that and it's annoying. Okay, here's this piece now. And now we're just going to trim this excess here. If you want, you can trim the other bits here. It's hard. You can't see that with my hand in the way, but if you want, you can trim these little guys here as well. There we go. And guess what? It's melon time again. Nice long tail here so we don't get the thread unthreaded. Da, 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 da. There we go. And now we're going to flop this over and do that stitch, which is actually going to ultimately be the cutting line. But for right now, when we trim, we're going to roughly trim, not so close to the edge. We just don't want our fabric to get involved with this other piece that's going to be stitching out here in just a moment. And now remember, this is going to be our absolute last unit, which is fantastic and fun. And I can't wait to show you the cool trick for quilting this. And don't forget, we're starting with this triangle right here and a salmon print, which goes there. We stitch. I know, I don't even have to say it. Melon time. How are you feeling today, Gayle? Little melon time. You know, I just love a good pun. Chris hates puns, and I love them. Melon time, Miller time. It keeps me through the project, you know? I have no funny thing about the salmon fabric. Nothing at all. And it may be our last and final melon time here. Fingers crossed that we don't have a snafu, because you never know. It's Kimberbell. We have snafus all the time. Okay, so here it goes, our little stitch around. Okay, so now it's going to go to the cutting board and we're going to trim them and we're going to do just a little bit of piecing, like on a regular sewing machine. Okay, let's cut it up. So I'm going to carefully find a 5-inch ruler. This is a Creative Grids 5-inch ruler like this. And let's zoom in just a little bit for you. Great. And I'm going to line this up right on those stitching lines because that is our cutting line. And now I'm going to trim and trim and show you how cute it is. And now let's trim on this line. And these are going to be 4.5 inches wide by 2.5 inches. And just to give you a visual, it's going to go like this, but it looks kind of wonky because we're going to be matching that notch with that notch. And then it opens up and we have a nice little pinwheel. Okay, so here is a top part of our pinwheel and a bottom part of our pinwheel. And one of the most important things to remember is to align this center with this center. So I'm going to put my pin through that intersection just like this. I stabbed it. And then I'm going to stab this just there. And I'm going to let those hang out together like this. Then I'm going to line up both ends like so. And the first thing I'm going to do is pin and pin like that. And now hopefully this will look good. So we're going to kind of have a little guide right here, if you see there, for stitching. Okay, there's our pinwheel center. And now we'll talk about pressing it in just a moment. So now we want to do this the same way. We've got that crucial intersection to mark. So we're going to stab it through the intersection. And then we're going to stab it through this intersection here. And in this case, I might have trimmed it a little silly. Don't worry, we're just going to stitch it with one side raised up a little bit more like that. And I'm going to pin just like that. And now let's line it up. So over here at the iron, I kind of feel like I've had a full day of sewing already, but here we go. This was just stage 1 of making this month's block. So I'm going to press my seams open. There's a lot of bulk here. So let's go ahead and give it some steam and press open just to get everything nice and flat. And I have to tell you, if you have a clapper, that would be something really handy for this. Let me show you what that is. It's a heavy wooden piece like this. And what happens is you can get your seam really, really hot. And then you put your clapper onto place and you let it cool. And it's going to get that seam nice and flat. Okay. If you want to make sure that you keep your seam nice and flat, then you put that on until it cools and then you admire your work. And this looks pretty good. Don't be alarmed if there's just a little bit there. We'll hide that in the seam allowance later. So now let's clean up the clutter and the scraps and talk about how we're going to quilt these two cute little blocks. I'm going to use the small clamp hoop and I'm going to put some medium mesh cutaway stabilizer in it. And we start with just clamping the stabilizer only on here. Okay, so now it's ready for the machine, and we're going to make our own design. So let's go over to the 990 and see how this works. And also, if you don't have a 990, we did include the files for you, and you can download them, or you can, of course, use the Kimberbell files. Okay, so we're going to start by clearing our table from what we had on there previously. And now I'm going to go over to my personal folder and I am going to find the Kimberbell file for this month. This is it. It's a design for a 4-inch finish block, which is going to mean it measures 4.5. So I want to ungroup this. So I go up to my crayon and I ungroup, and I just want to select the red, drag, and slide it over to delete it. Boom, it's done. Now I want to save this, and I'm going to call this Kimberbell quilt placement. Whatever you need to do to remember it, and I'm going to say May because we might have a couple of these, and I'm going to put it right in this folder, so that's fine. Now, for right now, I'm going to get rid of this, and now I want to play some more. So I want to pick a design that's loaded in the stitch file in my embroidery, and it's decorative stitches, and it's in the 201 folder, and I want to pick 202. I'm not going to enlarge or reduce this at all. I'm going to go to Endless Embroidery, which is right here. I want to get rid of these arrows. You've seen me do this in previous months. And I think I'll stick with 4 times. And now I say, okay. And now I want to rotate this 45 degrees like so. So it looks like this. Then I'm going to go back to that endless embroidery. And I think I want maybe 5 or 6 times. I don't know. I think that looks okay. So let's say okay to that. So this is going to be about 5 inches by 5 inches. And I want to rotate this back in this direction now. So let me close this out so that you can see the screen. Now, this is fine and dandy, and I'm totally happy with this, but I think I would like to have my flowers alternating going up and down. So first things first, let's ungroup so it's not all stuck together, right? Now I can touch this row and mirror it, touch this row, mirror it, touch this row, and mirror it. And now what I'd really like to do at this point is select all and group it together again. Then I need to add from my personal folder that Kimberbell quilting design for May. And now the only thing left is I want the flowers to stitch last. So we're going to just drag that into position there. And there is our quilting file and everything. Okay, so I haven't changed thread because we're quilting with our isocord number 101. So I'm just going to go ahead and stitch this. I am going to turn my quilt settings on. And I'm going to say okay. And now the first stitch that's going to stitch is actually a placement stitch. Then, as always, we have our project batting. And so we're going to cover that stitch down, or that placement stitch, with our project batting. And now we're going to trim that project batting right up to our tack down stitch. This just keeps the project batting out of the seam when we sew our quilt together at the very end. Okay, so now this is going to tell us exactly where to put our block. So this is color number 3. And before I tape anything into position, I just want to show you how we can put it right up against that stitching line. I know it's hard to see with the white here, like so, but that's how it needs to be. So we're going to let's use the glue, honestly. We're going to put this on and then we're going to let it dry for just a moment. I'm going to get those edges covered like so. And remember, you could use an Elmer's glue stick for this if you wanted. Now we're going to put this into position right on those stitching lines so it's nice and perfect. And now it's a moot point to stitch color number 4 because color number 4 is just going to stitch along that line again and it's just going to stitch right off the edge. So it's not something we need to do. And if you've never advanced your colors before on your 990, you're just simply going to push this arrow because see, number 4 is what we're on and we don't want to stitch that. So we're just going to push this button. There we go. And now we're ready to stitch all of our little daisies. And they're going to go kind of off the edge, so we might need to just be a little bit careful with this. I'm going to slow my speed down just a little bit, and then we're going to stitch. And one thing I forgot to do is to remind you when we stitch this out, we actually want to stitch our patterns so that when we get to color number 5, which is our last color, that all the flowers stitch together. I could have pressed monochromatic, but we want to stitch it so that all of these are stitching together. So what I'm going to do is if you know, you're not going to forget to do this, right? I'm going to use my knob to just cycle ahead on that flower. So I just start where it left off. I'm just helping it along sometimes.
Don't be alarmed if this happens. We're just going to gently cut the thread, lift the presser foot. There we go. And then we're going to back up just a wee bit. And then slip the piece under the foot. There we go. going to stop just to trim this thread. There we go. Okay, so one down, one more to go.
So let's have a cute little up close look at our blocks. And they're all ready to go. We just need to trim right close to the edge of our block. Now, the nature of quilting, it shrunk just a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about it because I know that the edge of the stabilizer is the edge of the 4.5 inches. The edge of the stitching, I mean, on the stabilizer here, like this. So that's one block. And then I'll just take this one out. And now we're going to trim this one. And I'm using the scissors, honestly, just because I'm trying to be a little bit careful here with trimming it. Now, next month we have a treat. I happen to know what's coming, and I'm not going to tease you with it, but we're not going to be making a block. So I'll let you guess what we're actually doing. If we're not making a block, what might we be doing? Mysterious, isn't it?
All right, are you ready? Do you think you can catch up this month? I think you can because this really isn't a lot of stitching time. It's just a lot of flipping time. It's a lot of flipping time that it took. Anyway, thank you so much for stitching along with us and doing this journey together. I hope you're having fun. And also, as usual, don't forget to check out our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel for other tutorials. There's almost 600 of them now. Can you believe it? Well, anyway, come on. Keep watching. Keep doing your Kimberbell. And I'll see you June 15th when we make something that's not a block. What do you think it's going to be? I have no idea either. All right. And hop on over to that YouTube channel, like I said. And it's pretty easy to get there because it's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville. And there you can like, comment, and subscribe. See ya.